All right, let's go ahead and review our independent work, lesson 325 for accuracy and precision. You'll see that I got a head start on the first problem, and just to remind us of the steps that we need to do for these problems, I looked to see which of the order of operations I needed to do first, and that was this division problem here. I did the division problem here, and then I brought down the rest of the expression. And then I went ahead and I solved that, -7 plus -2. When I moved over to this problem, there was a division problem at the beginning, and there was a multiplication problem at the end, and then we were going to combine the two answers or um, two solutions that we had to get a final total. So this problem here, when I did the division, I got 2.5, -2.5, because one of the numbers that I'm working with is a negative and the other is positive. This problem here, again, I had a negative and a positive multiplied together. I just brought that whole thing down, solved it here, and these are the two quantities that I combined to get 18 and 7/10. And it is a negative because they're both negative when I'm combining them. Now let's move on to this problem. And this problem has parentheses around this part, so I need to do this first. 8 plus -3 gives me 5. And I'm going to multiply that times -5 and 3/5. In order to do that, there's a couple different things I can do. I'm always wanting to change this mixed number into a top-heavy fraction whenever I can. So that would be 5 times -5 is 25, plus 3 gives me 28 over 5 times 5, because the two parentheses next to each other are a multiplication problem. And here is my handy calculator. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply 5 times 28. Just for speed and accuracy, we have 140. This equals 140, -140 on top of 5, which, if I do my division correctly, I get 28. And since one is negative, one is positive, different signs give me a negative answer. Going on to our next problem, we have two different sets of parentheses here. So this is one term I'm going to be working on, and this is the second term. With order of operations, I go from left to right. So I'm going to take a look at this, and this is 4 subtract -3. And I learned in previous lessons that I can rewrite this as 4 plus 3, because I can change a subtraction of integer problem into an addition problem, and then I add the opposite of the second number. So 4 plus 3 is 7. And because I want to demonstrate the importance of making sure that we are doing things in sequence using the correct steps, I'm going to bring this problem down here. 5 divided by -5. I'm going to do this problem first. 5 divided by -5. Well, 5 divided by 5 gives me 1. The signs are different, so I have a -1 plus 7. 7 plus -1 gives me 6. Go back and I'll circle all of my answers for you so they're easier for you to find if you go back and check out the rest of the video and then need to go back and refresh your memory, or want to use this video to prepare for your summative, which will be happening next week. The reciprocal. Now, if you read the math notes box in this lesson, the reciprocal is when I flip this. It's the that kind of fancy thing we did when we were dividing fractions. The reciprocal, so if I write this a little bit easier to see, reciprocal would be 13 over 7. And then if I multiply these across, I get 91 over 91. And that does equal 1, so that works. And this one we're going to take all the way over to the far right. 1/5 is what I start with. And if I want to know my reciprocal, that would be changing those locations of the numerator and denominator, multiplying straight across, I get 5/5, which is equal to 1. This here is kind of weird. We have a whole number, and really we can think of that as 2 on top of 1. And so our reciprocal is 1 over 2. And if I multiply 2 times 1, I get 2. If I multiply 1 times 2, I get 2. And that changes to 1 also. So I know I got my correct reciprocal because when I do the math, I end up with 1 as my final answer. And then for this last one, I'm going to take the 2 5/8, and I'm going to change that to a top-heavy fraction. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 plus 5 is 21. And the reciprocal of that, 21 goes down in the denominator position, 8 goes to the top. If I multiply this across, and I am going to use my calculator here over on the side, 21 times 8 gives me 168, and I know some of you already did that without even needing a calculator. You're that good. And if I get 168 over 168, that also equals 1. So next, it says to write 3 expressions, and you can use these numbers only once. Only once. And one solution should be equal to 28. If I do 2 plus 3 plus 6 plus 8, I get 5 plus 14, which gives me 19. All right. If I do 3 times 8 in parentheses, and then I do in parentheses 6 minus 2, I have 24 plus 4. Oh goodness, there's my 28. And the last one we can do, let's see, 2 plus 3 plus 6 times 8. And we have 5. We have this makes 11 times 8 equals 88. You might have gotten something different, but you do need to make sure that one of your answers is equal to 28, like the directions said. All right, and then the last thing that we're going to look at really quickly is what in the world happens here. So let's move this down so you can see these. And this is 5/7 times 7/5, and that equals 35 on top of 35, or 1. Wow. This one here I can rewrite 8/13 times something equals 1. Well, I'm thinking that we're looking at reciprocals again here. This one here, something times 31 over 27 equals 1. And using what I know about reciprocals, 27 over 31. And then this one here, this becomes 5 over 2 times something equals 1. Knowing what I know about reciprocals, I can pop that 2/5 in there. And we're done with that and ready to move on to our next lesson.